Hi guys, Craig and Heather here at Amalgamingle.
Hello!
On the 6th of September 2023, Starfield was released as an Xbox Day 1 exclusive and ended up being the biggest game launch in the history of Bethesda. But interest has progressively waned as Bethesda fans and newcomers alike begin to see the many glaring flaws of this half-baked supposedly open space RPG claimed to be 20 years in the making.
As we look back on our quickfire review rating with great regret, after being initially blown away by the size and scope of the game and its role-playing potential, it is now clear that the more you play Starfield, the less impressed you become. This is reflected in Starfield's fall from grace with the emergence of negative online user scores and reviews just 2 months after release.
Today we wanted to discuss the embarrassing responses that Bethesda have made to user reviews, as it's very rare for AAA developers like them to get involved in this way, because they are well aware of the backlash of doing such a thing.
Starfield has a mixed user rating on Steam, and it is the lowest rated Bethesda title on Valve's platform, even lower than Fallout 76, which has mostly positive reviews following all of the massive overhauls that this game has had. Personally, I'm not a Bethesda fan, and I enjoyed Starfield, but I am certainly not going to invest the hundreds of hours that Bethesda wants me to.
In our quickfire review, we gave Starfield 8 out of 10, and after playing it more, I would definitely drop that rating down to 5 out of 10. For me, as a massive Bethesda fan, this is the greatest gaming disappointment I have experienced since Mass Effect Andromeda, and these responses to gamers' reviews have really rubbed us both the wrong way.
Bethesda's idea of defending their game seems to consist of telling people that Starfield is supposed to be empty by design, since space in reality is empty. Well done, Bethesda, you absolute morons. Way to demonstrate how much you don't understand your target audience and gamers as a whole. I mean, seriously, their responses are ridiculous, unwise, and tone deaf.
What has made previous Bethesda titles so successful and capable of standing the test of time is that the more you play one of their games, the more you get addicted and immersed in that world. But Starfield is the opposite. The initial impression is wow, but the excitement progressively declines the more you play and realise that this game is 10% gold, 20% procedural generation and 70% nothing.
The problem is that the responses that Bethesda are giving to user reviews is full of deep denial of anything being wrong with Starfield. Rather than accepting the feedback from gamers and working towards improvements, they are simply being defensive about their self-proclaimed masterpiece and shooting themselves in the foot.
So let's go over the reviews and the responses, shall we? There are only 2 that we have seen doing the rounds on the internet, but that's more than enough to go off of. One reviewer rightfully points out that the game has copy and paste assets and the worlds are extremely empty and boring. This is a mixed bag for me and Heather, as Heather likes it more than I do, but even she will admit that this is a very accurate statement.
First of all, Bethesda say some of their planets are meant to be empty, but there was a player who landed on every single planet and it was well over 1,000. Across all of these planets, there's only around 6 settlements and cities that are worth visiting. There is no intelligent alien life, and the alien life forms that you do come across are exactly the same, just with a different name. So too are the camps and the traits that certain planets have.
But the biggest problem is the quote that is in their response. And I quote that quote right now by saying, "When the astronauts went to the moon, there was nothing there. They certainly weren't bored." End quote. This quote is not from any actual member of NASA, past, present or even future. This has not come from the lips of Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong or any actual astronaut. This is a quote from Bethesda themselves. What this means is Bethesda are quoting themselves to defend this game for being empty, forgetting that the astronauts went to the moon. I can't say it. Forgetting that the astronauts went to the moon for a reason and they weren't packing guns or boost packing around.
By that same logic, I would like to respond to negative comments on our videos by quoting ourselves. We are the bestest YouTube channel there is and you're all wrong. Yeah.
To continue with their response, they also said that it is Starfield's intention to make exploration make you feel small and overwhelmed. Now for me personally, I never felt small, I felt more alone, especially because I left the annoying companions back on the ship. I definitely felt overwhelmed, but only because you have to walk miles and miles and miles. You can achieve the same sense of awe Bethesda attempted to evoke without it being empty.
For example, The Outer Worlds, and even their older games like Oblivion were massive back in 2006, and the opening alone still gives Craig goosebumps.
Damn right.
It's like Bethesda wanted to move on but also wanted to carry around the baggage of gaming trends from 2006. Maybe there was more disputes than they let on during Starfield's development, and given the mixed reviews that are pouring in, that's unlikely to ever see the light of day unless a former employee speaks up.
Let's move on to the other response that's also doing the rounds on the internet. We'll paraphrase, but basically in this quick review the gamers said that the story is generic and the gameplay is boring, and they wish that there was a reason to both explore planets or even build outposts. This is something even I have not done. I have not touched outpost building once in any of the playthroughs I've tried. They also say that everything's fun once and after that it's a repeating soulless chore.
Which is so true, and the Bethesda response to this really does feel like they're missing the point. The response goes into great detail about what you can do in the game. You can fly, shoot, mine, loot, there are tons of characters to meet and quests to complete. They also tell you to play as different types of characters or put points into different skills, and that the story keeps going even after you've finished with New Game Plus. But it doesn't, sort of, I guess.
The problem with the response is that they fail to address the initial point the review made. The game repeats and it gets boring and the story is boring, and I definitely agree with the latter point. This is easily Bethesda's weakest main plot they've ever done, but we don't want to go off on a tangent. These responses tell us Bethesda were really proud of Starfield and they don't want to admit that. Like pretty much everything, it has flaws, and some of them are very glaring. And they should be proud. What they've got is a good starting point, and I just wish they'd move away from the creation engine and start afresh. And we wouldn't be having this discussion now. Loading screen after loading screen, awful character models, glitches and crashes, weird UI interfaces, the list goes on.
Another issue with these responses is that it paints Bethesda in a negative light as someone who can't handle criticism and ignores the gaming community, forgetting that the gaming community is the reason their games are so goddamn popular. And what I mean by this is the modding scenes of pretty much all their games.
And this has me doubly worried about The Elder Scrolls 6, because this is not the same Bethesda that released Skyrim in 2011 or Fallout 4 in 2015. This is a different beast and we should all be cautious.
I know it sounds like we're hating on Starfield, but this only comes from knowing that this game could have been fantastic. This really could have been their magnum opus, and it still can be, if they put their ego away and admit that they're going to fix the problems most people have. If they said that in the next update they would include a space buggy for ground transport, that would remove a lot of the monotony that stops me from continuing playing.
And I would be happy to know that in the next update they've removed 500 planets. It would make exploration feel much more rewarding instead of feeling like a vast ocean that's as deep as a puddle. Starfield would benefit greatly from being scaled down, but that's just me, and I highly doubt this will ever happen.
So we'll leave it there before we go off on one. That was just our thoughts on this weird putting out fires attitude Bethesda have suddenly adopted. Let us know your opinions in the comments below, and if you're curious, feel free to go back to our Starfield quickfire review, knowing we now cringe at our naivety. That's how you do it, Bethesda. I've been Heather.
And I've been Craig.
This is Amalgamingle, and thank you for watching.